Welcome to the Silhouettes of Success podcast with your host, successful entrepreneur, broker, and business mentor, Amber Weitzer. Because success comes in all shapes, sizes, and styles, the Silhouettes of Success podcast is shining the light on industrious women with a collection of curated conversations of intentional inspiration designed to inspire your heart, ignite your mind, feed your soul, and gift you with actionable insights directly from inspirational, everyday women who've shown tenacity, grit, and grace, having taken on the challenges in their lives and business and won. Remarkable, down-to-earth, and relatable, Amber and her guests will share with you uplifting and extraordinary real-life success stories, motivational ideas that just might help spark something within you. With the deepest desire to serve you, help you grow so you can begin to shine the light that will illuminate your very own silhouette of success. So, let's get to it.
Hello, and welcome to the Amber Weitzer podcast, Silhouettes of Success. Our VIP featured guest today shines so bright for all to see and benefit from her brilliance of service and empowerment. She considers herself ever-evolving, growth-minded, and a strong woman who lets nothing hold her back. She's a wife, mother of 3 boys, an entrepreneur overseeing 2 businesses, and a former naval officer. She's passionate about all of her roles, and we are so thrilled to have her here with us today. So please help me welcome Valarie Nussbaum. Hello, Valarie.
Hey, Amber. I'm so glad to be on your podcast. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, we are so tickled to have you here. Thanks for taking time out. I know it's such a busy life.
It really is. I feel like when I tell people my schedule and they're like, what? How do you do it all? I mean, I don't know. Lots and lots of coffee.
Exactly. And it's so cool you said that because that's one of the questions we're going to dive into too. So that's perfect. Right. What a great setup. So, Valarie, we are excited to hear you as you share your Silhouette of Success story with us. So let's kick it off and help illustrate the shaping of your Silhouette of Success and have you share a little bit about your background. How does that sound?
That sounds great. My background, it's not your typical background, right? I went to, it all kind of started, I went to college to get a degree, and the Navy had sponsored me to go to college. And so that was my first route into the world of kind of where I am right now. So I became a Navy officer, did that for a couple years. And then when I got out, I was a little bit lost, right? You're all kind of lost when you're in your late 20s, but I kind of had to figure it out. And so with trial and error, in a couple years and a lot of cocktails later, I finally have figured out what my passion is. And, it's kind of what I do right now. I have one business that is helping other veterans, especially military officers, transition out from the military to corporate America. So I do that as a consulting, recruiting kind of business. But then also on where my other passion is just empowering women and helping them learn about personal safety and then provide clothing to be able to conceal whatever they want to use as personal safety. That's what I like doing. So for me, the theme of my life has always been just to be a nurturing person. I have 3 children. One of them has special needs. So my life, it hasn't been typical. So I've had to learn to kind of roll with the punches and just roll with, it doesn't need to be like everybody else's. And I realized a few years ago that I really am in control of my destiny. And so that's kind of where I'm at right today. It's just paving my own path forward and figuring out what works for me, even though it's not conventional, but you know what? I'm having fun. So that's kind of a little bit about my background.
That's amazing. I think we all, or maybe not we all, I guess I shouldn't say that, but you mentioned feeling a little bit lost and finding where your passion or finding maybe where your path is. And then that you've mentioned not typical or not conventional. Why is it, do you think, that we all seem to have this idea, and maybe it's growing up, maybe it's conditioning, that there's a path, right? Because so many of us, especially the entrepreneur minded, we did have that lost feeling, or that, you look and you're like, oh, it's not conventional or it's not typical, but it's me. Would you say that everybody's like that and we are just realizing it with maturity? I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think growing up, we're all kind of told the same stories of
Yeah.
You got to get an education, you go to college, you start your career, and you have a family. And no one really tells you that you really should find your happiness in your joy.
Yeah.
Especially for me, I came from a really traumatic childhood and survivor of abuse in that aspect. So, but I didn't let that create my character. I've kind of removed myself from that and grown from that and became resilient. But it took me a long time to realize that I truly do own my own life, and I own my own passions, and I own my own joys. And then it kind of led me into my own business of telling other women and saying, hey, you can own your own personal safety. You have so much more control than what other people are telling you or they're not telling you. And I think just really as a woman, we're not given a lot of creative solutions or creative pathways forward. It's kind of like, hey, you got to do this, and it's still, especially for me, when I went into the military, it's kind of, this is a man's world. You got to do what men tell you to do. But we're in 2022, right? We can really have the power to do what we want to. There's so many more women entrepreneurs, and it's been such a rewarding experience now that I became my own entrepreneur and having my own businesses. I've really just discovered there's a whole world of women who go against the grain and who kind of just made a point in their life to say, hey, I'm not going to do what everyone else has set for me or put as the agenda of my life. I'm going to just take control, and I'm just going to go with it. Take that risk. And I think I don't have daughters, but it would be something that I would tell my own daughter if I had one, that, carve your own path, right? Life doesn't have to be like everybody else's.
I love that. Yeah. And some of the things, and again, I always say this and I'll say it again, and that's okay. I'm a note taker because in the moment, I've got to capture this, right? Because it lets us go back and maybe touch on different points that could get lost when I don't have you later on to capture all of that. But own your own and own your own life and your safety, your security, your passions, your journey. That is just so profound. So cool. Thanks for sharing that. I have a question for you. So, backing up a little bit, what does a day in the life look like for you? So, the alarm clock goes off or your cell phone goes off, whatever you use, the sun comes up. What does the work or business day look like for you?
For me, what was most important in my world of business is that I got to do it all, right? I do have a special needs son, so my day typically starts off with bringing into therapies. And, I can't have a conventional job where you're going in from 8 to 5. It just doesn't work when life gives you these unpredictabilities. And so for me, having my business and then being able to schedule, that's the one thing that I found in my life, that in order to run a good business and be successful, I have to, one, prioritize, and I really have to set boundaries for my time. That's really important. So for my day, I have a boundary of this is this time I spend with my son to take him to therapy. And then once he's done, I have a set block of time where I'm working on my businesses. And I'm pretty focused during that time. I mean, you can't break my focus because I like to make sure my time is used wisely. So it's part of one of my successful things of my day. I'm thinking like, don't get distracted by random notifications on your phone. Like, do your work in your allotted 3-hour time frame. Take those necessary breaks. So usually, I come take my son to therapy. I come home, do some work because I get to work from home, which is the glorious part about being an entrepreneur. And then, I take a break. I focus on, I'm going to go take a workout. I'm going to go take care of me because that is part of my success, is making sure that I don't forget who I am as a person and as a woman, right? Then, I'm taking in more time to go work on my businesses. And then, like a normal person, I have a drop dead time of like, it's 5 o'clock. This is time for my family. And the rest of the world can just leave me alone. My phone gets shut off, unless it's something really pressing. I mean, I set boundaries. And so then I have time with my family. I have time with my friends. And that's kind of my typical day, really. It's just focusing on making sure that the priorities stay the priorities of my children, my self care, my businesses, and me. That's really what needs to be my focus of the day. So it all kind of changes, but yeah, that'd be my typical day.
Wow. Okay. So everything that you said is fantastic. And I know everybody else will be taking notes. And then follow up questions would be something like, You talked about staying focused and not letting those distractions interfere with that. So, what I'm hearing from you is you have just immense discipline. And so, I would ask you, for those of us, raising my hand, that struggle with, you can time block and you can this and you can know you've got your priorities, but how, just with that discipline, is that just ingrained in you, or did you have to work at that? Just staying focused. We'll just talk about that one point, just staying focused within that time block that you've set for whatever task you're working on.
Yeah, I think for me, I really did have to work at it. I mean, some people can say maybe you're born with a discipline and maybe it came from the military experience, but I think as I got out of that world and the complexities of my life, I had to really learn this skill, because you can get distracted by social media, like notifications on your phone or someone randomly calling you. So I think for me, I had to put boundaries in place, like physical boundaries. So on my phone when I'm working, like during the times I've allotted for work, for example, I'll put my phone on do not disturb. So I'm not getting notifications, I'm not getting phone calls unless it's one of my favorites. So if my husband is calling me or someone, if there's like a true emergency, that will come through. But other than that, my world is closed off to everybody else except for what I'm doing in that moment. And so I had to really work on it, because it is hard, we get so distracted by so many things in our days. And so working on really outlining what it is I want to accomplish. So I have to go and be intentional about everything that I'm doing. So that's part of a skill I had to learn is, instead of, I'm a to-do list kind of person, but even in my to-do list, it has to be really defined tasks. So instead of go do laundry, right? For me, it has to be, you need to go separate your whites and your darks, and you need to do the master bedroom clothing. I'm just giving an example, random example. But or even for me, it has to be for my work things, decluttering my email, because for whatever reason, I just avoid my email like the plague. But so for me, I have to set an intentional moment of, okay, you have 30 minutes in your block of time to do admin hour, like my admin power hour is what I call it. So 30 minutes of that admin power hour, I'm doing certain tasks, and they're all repeated tasks, daily tasks of checking your email, responding, and they go in a certain order. And that's what helps me with that discipline. It's creating a habit, creating any kind of habit, like when you want to start working out or eating healthy, they're all based upon the same principle of you have to have a clear goal. They have to be defined steps, and then you have to actively do it. I like to make sure that if there's an excuse, that means I'm not making it a priority. So I try to make sure that I just rephrase my thinking of, oh, I don't have time to do this. Well, instead of I don't have time, it's I'm not making this a priority to get it done. So that changes my mentality to continue being more disciplined and more focused, because it puts the ownership on myself, right? Instead of just letting the world dictate my schedule, I got to take some ownership. And that's kind of part of my discipline, where it comes from.
That is just fantastic. And I love that when you just shared that of rephrasing your thinking, something that I heard years ago and sticks with me is don't negotiate with yourself.
That's a good phrase. Yeah.
Right. Don't let yourself talk yourself out of it. So, oh, yeah, that is awesome. So, backing up a little bit too, to when we first jumped on the phone here, you talked about how does she do it? How do you do it? How do you get it all done? So, again, through the eyes of a lot of our audience and each other, when we look at each other and we see everything that you're doing, and we always ask ourselves, how does she do it? Now, you just shared quite a bit of how you get things accomplished, where maybe, somebody else might not be as structured and disciplined, and that might not work for them. But tell us, how do you get it all done? Because in your roles, of course, you are a wife and mother, and you are an entrepreneur, and you are in an HR consulting role, and you are the owner of Olivia Concealed Boutique. So tell us about, how does she get it all done?
I think the biggest thing for me to get it all done is not be perfect. Someone had told me this phrase, if it's worth doing at half mast. So, don't do it perfectly. Even if you want to, for example, making a habit of brushing your teeth at least 2 times a day and flossing 2 times a day, right? Even if you can't do that full 2 minutes, do it half fast, right? At least
Mhm.
do, 1 minute. So don't be a perfectionist. That was a limiting factor in my earlier years was I always wanted to be a perfectionist, and I wanted to, if I couldn't get it all done, I wasn't going to get it done. I was kind of getting in my own way. So for me to get it all done, I realized that it doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to get done one step at a time, one day at a time. I have great 5-year goals, 10-year goals, but for me, I just got to focus on today and what does today need to happen. So that's my one thing. I need to always remind myself it doesn't have to be perfect, Val. It just needs to get done. I usually allot like half an hour for my workouts, but maybe something happened and I only got 10 minutes. Well, I'm going to power through those 10 minutes and it's going to be great because I'm not going to be perfect about it. A lot of it comes down to taking care of myself. And so one of the things that I do to get it all done is I have great resources in place. I do meditation and I work out. So I have a trainer keeping me accountable. I go to a holistic chiropractor. So she's like, got to eat these kind of foods so your body's in the right chi. So, keeping my body optimal is how one of the ways I get it all done, right? I can't give if I'm running off of nothing. I can't give to my family. I can't give to my businesses. And I certainly can't give to myself if I'm not taking care of me. So I think mindset of it doesn't have to be perfect, and then really taking care of myself. It's kind of one of the mentality of put your oxygen mask on first, right? If you can do that, you can really get through the whole day and you can be resilient and work through all those obstacles, because life is never as simple as we want it to be. There's always going to be challenges and there's never going to be a right time to get it done. But for me, when I wake up every morning, I think of, today is going to be a great day, regardless of what happens. I woke up this morning. So I have gratitude and I just go with it. I'm just normally just a happy person because I'm excited to be here and excited to get another chance to, have a good day.
It's awesome. It comes across in your voice. Your energy is so contagious.
Good,
But
I'm
that,
glad.
yeah, oh my gosh. But the gratitude, yeah, start off that day. And you had some great analogies. I like the oxygen mask.
I'm a
Yeah.
very visual person, Amber. It's how
Yes.
I got to get through. I'm very creative. So
Oh, I love that. Talking a little bit about that too, share with the audience. You are, of course, a consultant. So I want you to share about that. And then we'll dive into your boutique because you have all of these treasured accomplishments. So maybe break it down a little bit and talk about your different roles and what you're proud to share with us about and what you're doing because it's huge.
yeah. So it's interesting. I have a background in HR. When I was in the Navy, I did some HR roles. I did a lot of legal roles. Side story to this, my ship that I was on was actually attacked by pirates. And so my job at that point was helping the Navy create the manual on how we deal with pirate attacks because I was the only one that knew what went on. And so
Yeah.
it was such a fascinating thing. And so one of the skills I learned about myself is that I'm a really good problem solver. I'm very creative. I like thinking out of the box. I also like being more of the mentality of working smarter, not harder, right? We don't always need to recreate the wheel. We just need to be more efficient. And so when I got out, I mentioned I was a little bit lost. I couldn't figure out what to do. Couldn't fit into the square boxes that was corporate America. It just didn't find myself. And so I decided to go out on my own and realized that I had a skill of problem solving and consulting and really scaling businesses. And so I did that for a couple of years of going to in an HR capacity, going into companies more like startups and helping them grow. And I found that fulfilling. But I need to move around a lot. I don't like staying in one place more than once because I just get bored. I need to be intellectually challenged or I'm just not rewarded, right? That's where my passion lies. And so I actually took a break when I had my second child. I said, you know what? I want to take a break from HR. I was getting a little bit too much into the weeds. I had a worker, an employee that she called out one day and called him like, hey, why did you not come to work? And she said, oh, my cat is sad. And I said, you know what? I can't deal with people when their cat is sad. I need to go. I need a break from the people of this generation to tell me those things. So I took a
Crying out
break.
loud, you survived pirates attack. I mean,
Right. And so,
yeah,
you just realize at some point that you're
yeah,
not passionate about what you do. And there's
yes.
no reason to stay in a miserable place. Life is too short to be miserable. So I decided, you know what? I need to take a break. I was very fortunate that my husband had enough income to support us, and I was able to be a stay-at-home mom for a little bit. But I will never be a stay-at-home mom fully. I'm too much of a go-getter. It just doesn't work for me. And being a stay-at-home mom, by the way, is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It is so hard. But what prompted the boutique was, I felt really vulnerable as a woman, and being with a special needs child, a baby, and I was also pregnant again. And we live in a really safe community, but a woman was carjacked outside of Bed Bath and Beyond on like a Tuesday early evening. And I go to the Starbucks that's in that shopping plaza every single day. And on my mind, I'm like, if this can happen here, like I'm really vulnerable as a woman. And, I've had training on self protection, but I didn't really, you become naive when you're in a very safe environment, right? And so when I talked to my husband, I said, I feel like I want to protect myself. And he said, well, you can conceal carry. And I said, I'll look into that. And so one of the things I found is that there was no options for women to conceal carry as clothing. And it is quite intimidating for us to go into, a Bass Pro Shops or a gun store, even to buy things or to ask questions. And also, I was in camo for many years. I didn't want to be in camo now. Like for me, my look, I'm more like Audrey Hepburn, kind of Sex in the City kind of look. And camo just it ain't working for me. And so I realized that other women are the same way. There was just no options for us, and there's no education for us. And so I decided, you know what? I'm going to be that option. And so that's how Olivia Concealed was born. Just so happened that the company that my husband used, he was also in the Marine Corps. And so the company that he used, a recruiting firm that helped him transition out, actually came to me and they said, hey, we notice you have a special set of skills. We are looking to, expand our business and kind of fix our strategy a little bit. Do you mind coming and helping us with that? And so that's how that I got looped back into that, only because I felt like I owed them a humongous amount of gratitude for what they've done for our family and helped, my husband transition. And then it turned into what was supposed to be just a side gig to help me fund my clothing boutique. Then it turned into another passion of I get to help other veterans not make the same mistakes I did. They don't have to be lost. They don't have to waste all these times, you know, not making a good income or being dissatisfied because we just get lost in the shuffle. And so now I just do this, as a part-time basis, helping other military officers transition out. But then also, I'm running my business, and the focus for this year is really to go back to the core of Olivia Concealed, which was empowering women and educating the women who just don't know what your options are. Because things that we're told always have a buddy or, put your keys between your fingers. I mean, it's just not realistic. You can't just shove pepper spray in your big bag, because I'm sure you're like me where I have a humongous bag and it's always full of random things. I can never find my wallet or my keys most of the time. So you're being attacked or you're in a really uncomfortable situation. You can't be like, hey, bad guy, hold on. Let me dig through my big bag and find my material. It's just not realistic. And
Sure.
so we need to be educated, and we need to be educated in a way that is safe, and it's not judgmental, and it's not overly biased. It's a free thinking, just a collaborative discussion, because it's me, right? I like having collaborative discussions. And so now this year, my focus is to really have these seminars for women and saying, hey, let's talk about personal safety. Let's talk about your options. Let's talk about the scenarios which you need to be able to protect yourself. Don't rely on anybody else. Kind of like with your career. No one's going to care more about your career than you are. And no one's going to care more about your personal safety than you are. So for me, doing all of these things, they kind of overlap a little bit, but that's kind of like the backstory about all those things. Being disciplined is really helpful in this scenario because although they don't cross lines, I have to be able to focus and say, okay, I'm putting on my Olivia Concealed hat today. I'm going to go on Instagram and be all fun and stuff. But, an hour later, I need to put on my other hat of talking, strategizing, career planning with candidates. So it's fun, but it certainly can be exhausting if I don't plan it out well.
Just hearing you so far today, it sounds like a great combination to keep Valarie on her toes and busy and not bored.
Yes.
Crossing back and forth, you get to indulge in all of the fun, creative, empowering, educational, but then you get to go back and help with that nurturing and strategic part. So Good for you. You are finding your groove, as they say. And I, as you talked about getting back to the core of Olivia, concealed education, and all of those things, my friend, I think I see a future collaboration for us on that vein as well. So to be continued.
Awesome.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, all right, my lady, I'm watching the clock and respecting your schedule. There are a couple of important things that I always like to ask to make sure that we are really showcasing you and providing that intentional inspiration to our audience. So, let's pivot a little bit. Thinking back, and it could be recent, it could be years ago, was there ever a specific point in time, event, or key situation in your professional or work life, military or not, that really forced you to take a monumental shift within your business or career? What was the result, and whether it was positive or painful, how did that situation help you grow?
I've always been a really high performer. And what I realized when I got out into the corporate world that not everyone is in your corner. And so I had an experience when I was working at a corporate environment where my boss just didn't like that I was a high performer. And so she actually sabotaged an account that I was on. Like I had converted that account from 20% share to 90% share in 3 months. I mean, huge, huge conversion rate. And so she didn't like that. She was threatened by it. And so she jeopardized my job. And at that point, I said, you know what? I don't need this. And this isn't the type of life that I was expecting in corporate America. It was a hard lesson for me to learn that not everyone will be in your corner. And so I decided at that point that I needed to make my own corner. I needed to be less naive, and I needed to be smarter and understand and play the game, right? I kind of just overly like a nice person. I'm very trusting, but at some point I had to realize that not everyone's the same way or thinks the same way I do. So I think that was a really pivotal moment for me that led me to different intentions. And my intentions are to always do good. My intentions are always to be positive and leave a positive impact wherever I go. And being a consultant and being an entrepreneur has helped me with that because I can choose the people I want to work with, right? I can choose to be intentional with good people and surround myself with really inspirational women and inspirational companies. And so that has really been a pivotal moment, mind shift for me.
Awesome. Liberating, but tough at the time, of course, to go through and to see that and to feel it and to experience. Yes. But the outcome, look what you've done since then, since you went through that. It's amazing, right? We all benefit
Yeah.
from all the goodness that you're able to do. All right, my lady. So we all value great resources. You mentioned some earlier that you have some to help both maybe uplift and then also encourage and inspire us. So do you have a favorite author or resource, influencer, mentor that you'd want to share with the audience? And if so, what makes it a favorite?
I really enjoy following Oprah Winfrey. One is she's also, was in Nashville, and that's where I'm located now. But in her life story, and for her to be so positive and be so resilient, it just reminds me that life will never be easy. But it doesn't mean you don't need to have fun, and doesn't mean that you are going to be defined by your experiences. Which has also been a similar theme in my life, right? Just because something bad happened, you don't need to dwell on it. You can continue forward, and you really do have power over your own life. And so for me, that's my inspiration. And I want to be like Oprah, right? Have my own network, right? But I think she's really just a truly inspiration for me. I love following her and living up to just being resilient.
Yeah, she has just this aura about her that she's created and built, and but she's got that high vibration type personality. It's awesome. Yeah, right? Okay. It has been such a pleasure visiting with you today and hearing just morsels of your silhouette of success and what you do and what you've done up to this point. We know it's always to be continued, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with that, and as we begin to wrap up, we always promise our audience to share intentional inspiration. So, if you have one piece of key go to advice that was shared with you or that you want to share with our audience, what would that be?
I guess for me, it would be just to remember that every day is a new day to get it right. And whatever right means to you, it's always going to be a new day. Don't worry about yesterday. Don't worry about tomorrow. Just worry about today.
That is very profound, and it goes in line with what you mentioned earlier. When you wake up every day, you wake up grateful for the day. So, what a great tie in. So, thank you for that. All right, my lady. So, the stage is yours. So, we want to know where our audience can go to either connect or find with you on your socials or resources to support you and your businesses and continued success.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say, one of the main places I like to hang out is Instagram. So you can follow our Olivia Concealed at Olivia Concealed on Instagram. We like posting things. I like doing fun giveaways, and we like posting videos showing how you can conceal carry. Then also starting this year, and probably like the next month or two, when we start these seminars, you can go to our website. It's www.oliviaconcealed.com. And there'll be trainings. We usually do some white papers on, here's how you can conceal carry. Here's how, what your options are as far as personal protection, self-defense items. So take a look at that. Right now, we're going to stick to the local Nashville area, but we're planning on doing these seminars across the US, probably later on this year, just to get in front of more women and help them feel empowered.
Awesome. Look forward to that too. So we will be sure to share all of your links in the resource section so our audience can just click. Make it easy for
Awesome.
them to find you and support you. Valarie, thank you once again for sharing your time and Silhouette of Success story with us. You are a true inspiration for us all.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you for having me. This has been a really fun time, and I hope we get to do it again soon, Amber.
I think we will. I think the audience is going to hear from you again.
Awesome.
All right, my lady. Have a great day. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Silhouettes of Success podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out and join us for all the new episodes. We are here for you and with you. We encourage you to share this podcast on all your socials and pass on the light to help illuminate another silhouette of success. Amber would love to hear from you, and you can find her on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or head over to amberweitzer.com. Let's connect. Help us all shine and leave us a review too. To find out the latest ways to inspire your heart, ignite your mind, and gain actionable insights, subscribe at amberweitzer.com. We are honored, humbled, and full of joy that you've tuned in. Remember, you are exactly where you need to be, right here with us. This is the Amber Weitzer podcast, Silhouettes of Success.